Welcome to Holding the Line, a podcast where we unpack the shifting dynamics of global security, defense, and strategy. I'm Alexander Anderson, and in this first episode, we're heading to the Indo-Pacific, where Japan's military industry is undergoing a historic transformation. With record-breaking defense budgets, long-range missile deployments, and Trump tariffs looming large, Tokyo finds itself at the crossroads of deterrence and diplomacy. So how is Japan adapting its defense industrial strategy in an increasingly volatile region? Let's take a closer look. This year, Japan is undergoing its most ambitious military expansion since the end of the Second World War. The defense budget for this fiscal year, April 2025 to 2026, clocks in at a record 8.7 trillion yen, roughly $56 billion. That's a 9.4% increase since last year's budget and the 11th year in a row when Japan set a new record. This is unsurprising given comment in the 2024 Japan Defense White Paper, calling the current geopolitical situation the most severe and complex security environment since the end of World War II. The increase in defense spending is part of Tokyo's goal to double annual military spending to about 2% of GDP by 2027. That target puts Japan in line with NATO benchmarks, and more importantly, it signals strategic seriousness to allies and adversaries alike. A big part of this transformation is Japan's growing focus on counter-strike abilities. Long-range domestically upgraded Type 12 missiles are announced to be deployed across the southwestern island of Kyushu, which isn't far from Taiwan. These missiles can hit targets more than 1,000 kilometers away, reaching potential launch sites in North Korean and Chinese coasts, as well as any maritime assets in the East China Sea, as per Kyodo News. This marks a significant departure from Japan's post-war doctrine, which focused heavily on homeland defense. What we're seeing now is a country redefining its deterrence strategy without scraping constitutional constraints entirely. It's still framed as defensive, but it's a much more muscular kind of defensive. Domestic critics in Japan are arguing that the Ishiba government is betraying the spirit of Article 9, Japan's pacifist clause. The controversy was palpable on the 3rd when around 38,000 people attended a rally against revising the constitution, which featured opposition politicians on stage. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ishiba spoke through a video message to a group of around 21,000 people that assembled in support of the revision. His message: the ruling Liberal Democrat Party would push ahead with efforts to revise the constitution, though the party still lacks the 2/3 diet majority and national referendum it would need to make that law. Of course, building a stronger military takes more than doctrine or constitutional amendments. It takes industry and manpower. To say Japan has a recruitment issue is an understatement. They only managed to recruit 10,000, half of their 20,000 target, to all three branches of the military in the 2023-24 fiscal year. To combat this, the Japanese Self-Defense Force, or JSDF, has earmarked 409.7 billion yen, or $2.7 billion in the fiscal 2025 draft budget on improving working conditions, revising pay structures, and increasing duty allowances. Moreover, the Japanese government announced in August that they will be investing in AI and automation alongside the other measures to make up the shortfall. Japan's defense sector is projected to grow, led by major players like Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Kawasaki. In a recent corporate report, Mitsubishi HI alone expects a near 10% boost in operating profit, thanks largely to its aerospace and defense division, which is seeing demand surge both at home and abroad. Other ways Japan is seeking to expand its defense sector is through the loosening of its arms exports, restrictive when compared to similar regulations in Europe or the US. For example, in December 2023, the Kishida administration lifted some restrictions to be able to export quote, lethal weaponry to the US. Soon after, the Japanese government announced its intentions to export Patriot missiles to the US. They have since indirectly transferred to Ukraine. Finally, Japan is also exploring international defense collaboration beyond its traditional partnership with the United States. The Global Combat Air Program, or GCAP, a joint initiative between the UK, Japan and Italy, represents a major step in this direction. Japan has merged its next-generation Mitsubishi FX fighter project with GCAP, consolidating efforts into a single sixth-generation fighter program. The collaboration brings together defense sector heavyweights from all three nations: Britain's BAE Systems, Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and Italy's Leonardo. It also includes Europe's leading missile manufacturer, MBDA. But there's a catch that can hinder the growth of the Japanese military-industrial complex. Japan is dealing with the effects of Trump's tariffs, especially the 25% duty on cars, a key component of the Japanese economy. Most other tariffs, except for the universal 10% rate, were suspended temporarily earlier this year, but might return in July should the upcoming rounds of negotiations with the US fail. That uncertainty is weighing heavily on manufacturers, especially those sourcing high-spec components from the US or exporting to defense-adjacent sectors overseas. And Mitsubishi hasn't factored those into their growth predictions, according to Reuters. Zooming out, Japan's defense modernization is part of a broader strategic realignment. Under its free and open Indo-Pacific policy, Tokyo has been deepening security ties with Australia, India, and key Asian partners, such as Vietnam, with whom Japan upgraded a defense agreement in 2023, covering defense equipment and technology cooperation. Joint drills in the South China Sea and capacity-building efforts in Southeast Asia are central to Japan's effort to counterbalance Chinese influence without directly provoking it. But relations with Washington remain complex, whilst the security alliance remains strong, particularly under the Indo-Pacific strategy. Economic tensions persist. Negotiations over tariff relief are ongoing, with Japanese officials pushing for clarity ahead of the July decision point. Meanwhile, President Trump's comments on alliance reciprocity have revived concerns in Tokyo about the long-term reliability of American security guarantees. So where does this leave us? Japan in 2025 is a country pushing hard to become more self-reliant, more resilient, and more regionally assertive. It's investing at scale, innovating across the defense industrial base, and hedging its bets diplomatically. But it's also facing headwinds from tariff pressure to alliance uncertainty that could complicate the path forward. Whether Japan's military industry can thrive among these pressures will help shape not just the